Hey there everyone, it's Todd from Gilla Games and welcome to the first official part of the devlog for Shrouded Aspect. Now if you saw my previous video, which was kind of an intro to what I'm going to be working on, the fact that I'm going to be working on this, you know that Shrouded Aspect was a game that originally was under development starting in 2007 and started out as a 3D project and then switched over to be an iOS project in 2D and released in 2011. So I'm going to go back to the original design days of Shrouded Aspect, probably before it even had the name Shrouded Aspect. This is where the idea started. Now, around probably February or March of 2007, Shady O'Grady's Rising Star was just about ready to launch. So I was already thinking about my next project. And I used to work with a guy named Miles Wool, who's an artist and a gamer as well. And we got together for every day for a solid week and just hashed out a design for Shrouded Aspect, what became Shrouded Aspect. And we went through, the first thing we did was he found a kind of a template document, a worksheet of several questions that should be answered when you're thinking about a design for a game. And I still have it in all of our answers. Here's a couple of the first pages of it. And at first he brought it and I was kind of skeptical. I was like, I don't know how much this is going to help. But once we sat down together and answered all of these questions, there were a lot of really good questions that needed to be answered that I didn't think of before that. So it forced me to think about specific things that need to be answered before the game could really be created. And then we took all those answers and we already had a good idea for what we wanted the game to be anyway. It's a turn-based tactical strategy game set in a fantasy world with a campaign, a storyline, and some branching parts of the campaign so that you could go back and replay it again and take a different branch and get a different experience. Different characters in the game that you come across that can join your party, and each time you play you can choose to use different characters or focus on different skill tree choices. So we want it to be very replayable in that way. Now the original design document, at rereading it now, I see that we originally planned on having two campaigns. We wanted to have like a dark side and a light side campaign that are basically two different perspectives of the same story. But that ended up not happening. The Shrouded Aspect only ended up focusing on the one side of the campaign, and I think the idea was that the other campaign would actually be the sequel, which is why the game title ended up being, the full title ended up being The Pantheon Cycle Shrouded Aspect, because the idea was the Pantheon Cycle was the name of the series, and Shrouded Aspect was the first game in that series. And then the second game would focus on that other campaign. But the first game on iOS didn't do well enough to continue working on it and making a sequel at the time, so it didn't happen. After we came up with the story and the progression through the hubs, Miles also came up with some concept art. He's an artist, illustrator, painter. He's now a full-time artist. You can go check out his website. I'll link it below. So he sketched up some character ideas, and it's just really some of the main characters that you come across. Miles didn't ultimately end up working on the game all that much once I took all this information and kind of ran with it in the future. He was still working full-time at Plexus Systems, which is where we worked together before, but I was kind of on my way out of there, focusing more on game development. And I tried to get him to come with me several times, and things were just too good over at Plexus, so he stayed there until just a few years ago. Okay, then we had the story, but I needed to have a script because we knew that the story was going to be narrated by a professional voice actor. So I handed my our story notes and everything over to my friend Charity Becker, who is an author. She does fantasy and sci-fi and like thriller and horror type of books. So you can check out her stuff also. I'll link it below. And she came up with a full script of all the dialogue that ultimately got recorded by a woman from Australia using an Irish accent, but that's probably for another video. And then I also found an artist. I used to go on to deviantart.com quite a bit around those days. Remember, this is still pretty early on in internet days compared to what we have now. So I went to deviantart.com a lot to try to find artists to help with the game, and I found a guy named Steve Goad, Goad, and he ended up painting several things for the game. He took our world map concept and then fleshed it out into an actual detailed world map image. He also did the cover art with the two characters and the great oak tree in the background. And then I wanted to have a different look, visual style and feel for each hub in the game. You know, each hub is kind of like a part of the progression where you go to the next hub and there's several scenarios that you play, and then you beat those and you go to the next hub and so on. And each hub is its own look. So I wanted a background image that really was very detailed and gave you a better idea of where you were at in the game, especially since especially in 2007, 2009, 10, whatever, the in-game graphics for something like that, especially when you're looking at a top-down view, doesn't really convey the detail that I wanted. So those background images help. So anyway, if you're interested in keeping up on the journey of how this game got made originally and also how it's being remade now in 2024 as a 3D game in Unity, make sure you subscribe and check back often. Thanks for watching.